Hey, can you guys hear me? I'm using some headphones that have sometimes not
We
worked
hear
on
you.
Twitter Spaces. So,
We hear you loud
a
and clear.
Yeah,
quick
we got
mic
you.
check.
Mic check. Okay. Yeah, we can probably get started. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. Super excited to have both William and Iskra today. Tons to talk about. And I guess we'll start with sort of, a little bit about what's going on in the markets. I know, Vaughn, we wanted to talk a little bit about AI and what's happening there, since that's definitely the topic of the last few weeks, I guess. What are you seeing? What's
I
interesting to
mean,
you?
certainly hot. I mean, the brain drops stuff is really going crazy. I do think we need to at least preface it by saying that the day zero, day one stuff, so the Claire Silver and the Pindar, and there's one other,
Gene
like if you own
Kogan,
that,
yeah.
yeah, if you own that set, you get access. So, you do have to recognize that part of the bid in those assets could be related to the benefits that are bestowed for holding them. But obviously, the whole AI sector, anything relating to AI right now seems to be red hot. Obviously, Life in West America is still doing well, as well as pretty much everything related to the space. So, it's good with the Bright Moments drop coming up in I guess it's 2 months from now. They were pretty early on that, and there's some definitely good artists in that as well. So timing for that's pretty good, I think. Also,
Yeah, I think with the auction for that's next week, I want to say. Is that right?
I think that's right. I think it's March 15th. I think
Yeah,
March
that
16th.
sounds right. I'm trying to remember everybody that's, and I know it's like Sophia Crespo, Pinder, Helena, yeah,
Helena.
Gambru, Claire Silver, I think Kevin Abosh maybe,
Yes,
Ivana Tao. I'm probably missing one or two people, but yeah, that should be like a super good one for sure.
definitely.
And then I'm trying to think of what else there was. I mean, there's like obviously still some more brain drop stuff. We saw the Claire Silver signing with WME and like what's happening at the Louvre with some of her pieces being shown. I mean, that's incredibly exciting. Did either of you catch the timeline on that happening? I think I missed the date on it.
I did not see it.
No, the timeline on the Louvre,
Yeah, with Claire.
I can go look, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and then I guess there's something happening with Beeple this weekend, like a studio show. Not entirely sure what's going on there, but yeah, I think that's this weekend.
Yeah, I'm
So
going and I'm not entirely sure what's going on still. So,
I think it's the opening. I think it's the opening of his digital art museum. I know he's got like a rather large space with a lot of wall floor to ceiling screens. Looks pretty impressive. It should be a good time for people who are going.
yeah, absolutely. And then obviously, with our special guest artists, Iskra's involved with a show at Sotheby's, all female artists, some really really great work. We'll have her talk a little bit about that today, and then Williams drop on Tonic this Friday at 1 p.m. Strands of Solitude. I just picked up a couple pieces in the pre-sale, which I sort of tweeted about a little
Yeah, I
while
saw
ago.
those. They look really nice. Very cool.
Yeah,
Great
yeah,
pickups.
appreciate that. Yeah, Williams pretty exceptional. So thanks, William. Appreciate you making great art, man. It's pretty sweet. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I guess we'll get going and we'll do artist intros. So William Iskra, thanks so much for joining us. I mean, I guess William, we'll start with you. Although I know you're probably tired of making the rounds at this point. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about the journey, the process, the current collection, a little bit of everything.
Hey, hi. Thank you for having me. Yeah, a bit tired, but it's okay. I start to be like in the zombie mode where I'm tired, but okay. It's weird, but it's okay. So yeah. About what was the question again? Oh my God, who am I?
Yeah, it's okay. I was just saying, just sort of a little bit about like your journey with art and your process, and then going into like obviously the drop this Friday and talking a bit about how you've been going with that as well.
Oh yeah, my journey with generative art started I think like 10. No, I was doing stuff with code for the last 12 years maybe, and I started to call that generative art maybe 5 years ago when basically stumbled onto actual generative art in museum and exhibition. I was like, okay, this is how it is called. What I'm doing in my little room at home. So there's actual artists doing that for real. So okay, let's dig into that. And since I've been digging, and last year in 2021, my first major release on Tezos was Dragons, which was a very good step for me to explore the Web3 space. And then some month after that, I took a leap with Anti-Cyclone on art blocks, which was much more challenging for me because I mean, in my practice of art is I like to juggle like to balance between analog and coding and digital. So I like to import different concepts from digital to analog, and from concepts from analog and import them into the digital space. So something like texture or colors, stuff like that. So it was very important for me to translate this as well. And art blocks very pushed me into toward my limits. So can I actually do that? I wasn't very confident at first when I started doing Anticyclone. And the more and more I was progressing, I was like, oh, okay, I can actually do that. So let's do it and let's do it. I kept pushing for months. And at some point, it just went on the website, and it was an overwhelming success. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm like, whoa, this is actually happening. So since then, but basically the space gave me the confidence to continue into doing this. And now I'm doing more of it. And so the latest, the latest series, yes, Strands of Solitude, is much more about me exploring the concept of solitude, loneliness, and lockdown with COVID. So it's all about being isolated, basically. So either as an artist, because I discovered that being an artist is actually a lonely path. And the same thing with COVID and lockdown, I was very isolated. And sometimes I was actually finding joy in being alone as an artist, or even during lockdown, because it can enable me to make stuff I wouldn't think about. And I wanted to have this very strong theme for this series. And on top of that, I quite noticed, on social media, how we are not alone, but I would say we are alone together or together alone. It's like we live our own experience, but at the same time we are quite isolated and we don't talk to each other. And even with when you have like conflicted debates on social, it's very, like, especially on Twitter, it's very nocive. It's very negative, and I wanted to highlight that as well. So everyone is in the same space, but at different speed, at different position, at different opinion, and sometimes we can talk to each other, but sometimes we can't. And that's the foundation of this story, is like the strands, the lines defining, like they start from the outside of the frame, and they travel across the composition, and they sometimes end at the other side of the composition. And this is basically the walls of the bubbles. Like you have your little bubbles, your social bubble, and you can't communicate with another one while it's right next to you. You just don't see it, because that's how social media works. And yeah, it's all about that, the concept.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Always good to hear your thoughts on how you go through with the process. Iskra, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining. Definitely same questions your way. Introduction to yourself, your practice, your process. I know, like I said a few minutes ago, you've got a really cool piece up for sale in the Sotheby's auction, and that's super exciting. So yeah, take it away.
Yeah, hi. Well, Iskra here. Thanks for having me. Well, my background is in data visualization. Everything started like 10 years ago. First with my own studio, then I moved to a financial institution in Spain. And during the first years, I was basically dealing with huge amounts of data and, trying to make sense of all this mess in a beautiful way, drawing things, sharing with media mostly, and kind of filling this gap, with between the data science at the time and the social opinion or something like that. And at some point, I just realized that I was most interested in the algorithms than in data itself, because data was so restrictive sometimes for me. And I was so lucky to be part of a very great scientific team at that time. So I just took the chance to learn from them, and I got quite involved in machine learning and the philosophy behind the algorithms that those scientists were making. And I started assuming more strategic roles in the place, and at some point I just realized that I was trying to answer some questions that were progressively bringing me far and far from the business needs of the company. So I just quit my job. That was just 1 year before the COVID. And yes, I just quit, and thinking that I really needed to get more deep into these questions of how, very in short, this huge brain that we can call machine learning and artificial intelligence can, open the doors and unlock new ways of understanding our relationship with our context, between each other. I mean, very, very interesting questions for me. So yes, I just quit my job, and I spent like 1 year on just trying to understand why I quit, and what I was going to do. And let's say we built a playground at home with we took a plotter, a pottery wheel, like making a space great to start creating things. I really didn't know where I was going, but I really thought that I could just share something with the world. And I think I had this wow moment, like William, at some point when I realized that I really wanted to express myself through algorithms. And but since the beginning of my background, I never said that in these words, and at some point it just popped up this this idea of this is generative art. Of course, that was here for a long time, but I mean, in the social expression, let's say, in the media, it became like more hype, and I say, okay, I can do that. This is actually what I'm doing. And I just that's how I started doing that. And my first idea was to keep going through these questions, but then at some point I just realized that I couldn't cope with everything at that time. So I just decided just to go through the aesthetics and explore and take care of building my own body of work or something. And this is how everything came, and I'm here now. And yes, speaking about particularly now, I'm very happy with this piece in Sotheby's. It's for a really great cause, I think. Very good in time, with today and all that represents for women. And yeah, I was so happy to be invited to be part of this, and I really wanted to release something special for me, as the birds are. And yeah, since I'm spending now 1.5 months in Paris for a project, I was so inspired by the romantic idea of Paris, and I really wanted to combine those two things and encapsulate this bird into a very special moment for me, which is now here in Paris. And yes, there is something of the city in this piece for me, those colors, those shapes. So yes, this is like my proposal for the show, and let's see how it's going. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Iskra. I've talked to both of you a little bit about this idea of like your processes and sort of organic discovery of outputs and what's possible with your systems through sort of like breaking them and seeing like what comes out of it. You know, can both of you kind of talk a little bit about what your version of that looks like and how you stumble upon things and why like that is an important part of your practice?
Yes, definitely. I think generative art, a very good foundation, very important foundation. Sorry, of generative art is the randomness aspect of it, the chaos you can inject into an algorithm. That's how I differentiate procedural art where you want to do something very specific, and generative art where you allow your system to be random. And what I like about this is you can imagine the way you want an algorithm will behave. You can't possibly imagine all the parameter space that exists around the algorithm. And I think this is the beauty with modern, generative art, like using the computer. You can actually explore all this parameter space at an insane pace, uh, like you couldn't do before. So sometimes you're like, okay, I pretty much pretty much think thoughts about all the possibilities of my algorithm, and then you put a crazy value in this particular value, and then something completely different happen, and you don't even understand. And then basically the computer tells you to actually understand what you're doing, because it's just outputting some stuff you told him to told it not told him not told it to do. So it's like a collaboration, but the artist, the human, is very at the core of it, and how it can allow the machine to make choices. It's very crazy to me that we can do that these days, and I think that's how, like, Iskra is the same. I feel we allow ourselves to just fail our algorithm and let it go, like let it be crazy, let it find the thing that we couldn't think of. So yeah, this is how I play with my algorithm. Usually I just design something very, like, with something very specific in mind, and then at some point I'm like, okay, I'm gonna break my own reality and find another one. What about you, Iskra?
Yes, I think exactly. I completely agree with William, and we've been talking a lot about this, and I think we share this common approach. I think in my case it's really fundamental, this approach of just breaking everything. Maybe while listening William, I was thinking about why I'm doing that actually, and maybe it comes from my background in visualization, maybe, because I had to have a very clear idea of what I needed to represent, and that had to be very accurate with this first idea, because that was, representing facts. And I remember at that time I was I had really difficult times with that, because I'm not exactly an organized person, or focus on something and lover of following rules. So I don't know how to say that. And I found myself very well, at my home, just saying, okay, this is not for anyone, this is just for me. I can just break everything and see what's happening. And that's something that I'm super grateful for now, that I can just dedicate my time doing that. I mean, that's my job now, just exploring and destroying things. And I think getting back to the point of the piece now in Sotheby's, which is the bird, that's a clear example of that. That was I'm very bad with dates, but I guess 2 years ago when I came up with the first bird, I was playing with, this very simple algorithm for creating trees, and I just did it, and it was very nice, but it's boring for me. I mean, just I'm here after 2 hours and I created a tree. So I tried to destroy that tree by crazy rotations, play with scales, lines, thin lines, bold lines, many things. And then at some point, I don't know how it emerged, the bird, which is not exactly the bird, but it's an illusion of. So I really reflected a lot about how this happened and what does it mean exactly, because I think, as William says, there is something really magical in this new collaboration with the machine, or as I said before, with this bigger brain. I mean, this is for me a very interesting point in history, because we are not creating something that we know what we are doing. I mean, we create something, and then we have this answer from something that we really don't know what it is, but we have a new information and we have to deal with that. So I think it's very beautiful, first of all, to be able to go back to your code and say, okay, how I came up to this and what does it mean. And also, I think, for example, the plotter helps me a lot with that, because sometimes I obtain something that it's very crazy and I don't know how I did it. And then if I plot that and I observe, the pace is very different, and I can see line by line how is the logic behind. So there are a lot of questions that for me are interesting to be answered in this process. But I think, just like William said, there is something very beautiful on starting with an idea, then breaking it, and once you obtain something completely new, start tuning that into something, to gain control again, but from something that it's not, it's a collaboration, I mean, with another entity. So this is my process mostly.
I want to thank both our guests for joining today. Really appreciate it. I had a question for Iskra. The first piece I bought from you was from your uninhabitable drop. Very cool. Really liked it. More recently, I picked up from that same drop one of the red light versions, and I'm just kind of curious as to what the inspiration for the red ones were specifically. I know that you talk about in the drop evoking natural environments and buildings, and I'm just curious, is what was the significance of the red, and why did you put that in there?
Well, first of all, thank you for having not one but two. I really much appreciate that. Well, the story behind Inhabitable is, again, this break and build, and that's my first long form ever, and one of the very few that I have actually. And I think I prefer one of ones. I have a better relationship with one of ones because I spend a lot of time with each one. I like to create a story around, and when I face this new opportunity of trying myself in this long form practice, which is very different from a one-on-one, I really thought I needed a story. I'm very attached to the storytelling. I mean, it's very, very important for me. And I thought, okay, if I do a long form, there is something that I need to create to connect all the pieces. And I was playing with these ellipses, and I don't know, at some point, something like a city or a horizon emerged from the code. And I decided, to break the system in different pieces to obtain different scenes, let's say. And it was very interesting for me to say, okay, that could be my first long form, because actually what I wanted to reflect there was this loneliness of being in particular spaces, which is, a nowhere in the middle of the forest or in the city or in the downtown, so my main purpose there was to create something that could look very similar, the outputs, because the cities are not that different one of the other, And a forest is actually if you're inside a forest, you don't know in which forest are you, because everything is very similar. But if you just look the details of the work, you can see different stories in each piece. But I really wanted to create this sense of I really don't know where I am, and the system is very pure in colors. It's a monochrome. I mean, well, it's like cream background and just black strokes. And I really felt that I needed something stronger to add into some of the elements. And I really like this black, white, and red combination. And I just started, playing with that idea. And first it was very heavy. When I added the color, it really broke everything. So I said, okay, maybe it's not a good idea. But then I started working with a stroke width, and at the end I had this kind of fog that I think it's on some of the pieces, and I really like that. And I said, okay, I actually didn't think a lot about this. It was a very quick decision. I said, okay, I like this. And yes, I think it breaks a bit the system. It creates this feeling of something stronger in some of the pieces, and that was the story.
Thank you. Very, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, both of you guys, I think, one thing, I guess what I really enjoy is how much effort you put into storytelling, into the work, right? I mean, it builds that connection both with you and the art, you and your art that you create, but also like it allows the collector to make a connection there. And that's sort of the most interesting part, is like, it's great to have the art and to look at it, but it's even better to understand it, to build some kind of a connection with it. And William, you're sort of really similar to Iskra in that sense, that you're always trying to like build a connection with what you're creating and build a story and sort of close the loop. And yeah, sometimes that might be overwhelming, I would imagine, but it's also got to be super rewarding, right?
Yeah, it's definitely rewarding. For me, my relationship with art is really something that come from within you. So it's like a voice. It's like something you wanna out. Like it's like an inner thing that when you wanna output, you want to convey, to communicate. And coding or whatever your medium, AI, writing, anything, it just like a translation of you and what you feel. And I very think that if I start to succeed, sorry, in translating my emotion and feelings into something, then I can share it to the world, and maybe it will talk to other people as well. But it has to talk to me first. So I really try to analyze myself all the time, and what I want to say, what I want to do, what do I feel, and that's how usually concepts get defined for me. And then the challenge is to work with my medium, which is generative, so to inject some randomness. So how to still keep that vision while injecting chaos. So this is a whole difficulty for me always, to not get off the track, because it's very easy to say, oh, I like that output. I don't know how it happened, but I very liked it. And just put it in the series, and then it has no sense in the whole as a whole if you zoom out. So I really try to always keep track of this vision. So I usually visualize this as, I have my main track, like my starting point, and my vision, which is my end point. And then with the computer, I start to create sidelines. But at the end, I always try to merge them back into the main track, and to not get too far away from my main concept. And if I usually have a lot of bugs, I have a lot of things that I didn't plan, but if they don't match the concept and my vision, if it doesn't speak to me, I just leave it in my folders and never show it again. AB, I think, I can say that I don't show me. I do a lot of stuff that I don't show, but it's mainly that I do something. It's very beautiful, but it has no sense in the current context. So I just put it aside and we'll take it back later on for something else. But I really think the process of externalizing the emotion and feeling is the core concept of art. So it's not because we have a computer that we have to forget that, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
No, I definitely just think like that's a common critique in generative art is it's very tough to kind of convey emotions and feelings and meaning behind the art because, A, you're interacting with a machine, and B, I just think a lot of people don't get the opportunity to like hear the story from the artists behind the work. So I'm wondering, like, what would you guys like to see more of moving forward to kind of help, get that message out there and like help people better understand what goes into the work? Because I think a lot of people are still just looking at generative art and they're like, oh, it's just some combination of shapes and colors, and there's not like, a deeper meaning behind it. Like that's the common like critique that I get when I talk to people about it. So like, how can we kind of help, convey that there actually is meaning behind a lot of this art and the message behind it? Like, do we need to do more, but like to reveal more about the process? I don't know. I'm just curious to hear y'all's thoughts.
I definitely think it's about the process and education, because this is pretty new for a lot of people, generative art. So we have to educate everyone about what is this practice and to show how it is done, the processes, the vision, and people usually just understand how it is actually art and not just a bunch of random shapes put on the canvas. But yeah, I think, and this is why I also choose to work with Tonic on this, to bring more collectors to the to the mix and educate them and tell them there's this new thing, this new wave of art, and you should look at it because it's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic how the art world is always kind of pushed back on a new form of art at first, and then over time it becomes more widely accepted. Like you would think after a certain point that people would become more embracing of new types of art, but it just continues to kind of follow the same cycle. It's just an interesting dynamic in the art world overall. Like at some point you'd think we'd break that cycle, but I guess that's just the way it is.
I think it's something that, as you said, it just comes with time. I think now a lot of critics that I hear, they're sometimes just mixing everything. I don't like this new art, I don't like the NFTs, I don't like this new market, I don't like crypto. And it's like, okay, let's just break everything and talk about everything separately. Or that's how I feel sometimes goes the conversation. But I think focusing particularly only on the art, I think for the good or for the bad, because I'm a huge supporter of the purely digital piece. I really enjoy a digital piece itself, but I think as humans we connect way easier with physical pieces. And I think now there is a very beautiful trend on, like Tonic, printing these artworks, and other galleries and other independent artists. They're really trying to push the borders of that's the output that I had from the computer, but with that in my hands I can really convey everything to the physical world. And that's something that really touches emotionally easy in an easy way, to many of the people that they are not so used to this kind of art. And I think with everything together, at the end there is something you said before. Many people think that this is a combination of shapes, and I agree, and sometimes it is a combination of shapes what we do. But I think we're exploring now, and there is room for everything. But I think at the end, even if you are a digital artist, a generative artist, an AI, or an oil painter, traditional one, we are all here to express something, as William said before, and put honestly our emotions in our work. And I'm sure that even if it's a combination of shapes, even if it's on the screen or whatever, once you see something that is like wow for you because really connects with you, it's impossible for anyone to say this is not art, because it's just about feeling. So I think from the artist perspective, and I think we discussed that as well with William, sometimes it's just do a step back. Sometimes I'm taking some time off now to re-understand what's the context, what's what we have to do, and how can we connect with that. And I think the only way to do that is just to do this step back, work on your stuff, forget about anything else, and just create honestly something that really touches you. And I think if it touches you, that opens the door to touch the emotion of anyone else. So I think it's, yeah, just in short, it's like all kind of art. This is the same thing here.
Yeah, I think like something we've been hearing from a lot of artists and collectors too, really, is like this thirst for the manifestation of the generative systems or outputs in physical forms, right? And in different physical forms. I'd be curious to know how much you guys share in the thirst for that, and what kind of physical mediums you're most interested in. Iskra, you can talk a little bit about this if you want. The sort of thing you created with Marcelo Powell, via Kate Fast Gallery, and this idea of like performance art for generative work, which is the first that I've seen. I'm sure there's been other examples of it, and maybe you can speak to that. But some combination of performance art and these physical mediums. And I know you talked a little bit about really enjoying the digital medium, but curious where you guys are looking toward the future on that front.
Yeah, I am definitely very interested in experimental projects, and that usually comes with this combination of both worlds, because it's very appealing, to play with physical elements when you want to just explore something new. When I started with everything, I was really interested in play with clay. Actually, I have my wheel at home. I'm a disaster doing things with ceramics, but I'm really trying to learn and to do something, because I really wanted to express myself through that. And that's why I bought my plotter, because I really wanted to draw with the plotter on different ceramic and porcelain pieces. So that was my beginning, and I'm still very connected to that. But at the end, with the fast pace of the space, I had to just put some things aside. But I'm definitely going back to that when I can find the time. And this project with Marcelo was really it's technological, because it's we created this system, and then we put it on a VHS tape, and then we run it, we destroy it with this magnet. So it's nothing to do with traditional painting or something, or the plotter, how we usually connect these things to the physical world. But it was amazing, just to have this fresh air of being free, just to play as kids, with different elements, buying these tapes, buying these old TVs, and just brought me, and I think to the both of us, a great joy. And yeah, for me, definitely, I'll try to combine more orthodox projects in the future, but for sure I'll be super attached to these new things and new reflections, and because I really enjoy playing these unknown places where I really don't know how it's going to be. But the process itself, it's major for me.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was really cool. Like when I first read about it, I'm not saying that this was necessarily the inspiration, but it definitely reminded me of like Marina Abramovich and Ule, and sort of like some of the performance art that they did back in the day. So yeah, I thought it was really cool, really unique, something that I definitely would like to see more artists explore in the future. William, not to hijack you there, but yeah, just sort of same question over to your side. Looking to the future, some physical manifestations of some of your work and upcoming projects.
Physical has always been, I think, like a core part of me. And indeed, as Iskra said, like the Web3 space, but us in a weird spot where we're at a fast spot actually where we tend to forget ourselves, and it's very important, I think, to step back and to say, okay, this is what I was doing before, and I'm going back to it, and then maybe I'll come back. But let me have a break. I think it's very important to develop as an artist, to have those breaks and just evolve as an artist. And on my part, I think painting is a very strong component of mine. So I'm trying currently to find ways to combine my code and paint in bizarre ways, as usual. But I'm also like a dancer. So I do a lot of hip hop and stuff like that. And at some point, I'd love to do something with dancing. I think this is a very strong vector of communication and emotion. And I'm starting to work on concepts and stuff like that. How I could mix dancing and gentle arts and yet to just put my body out there. Um, I just wanna give my body some stuff to work on physically and to really feel what you're making, because sometimes with the computer it's quite hard to feel um, to feel physically what you're doing, because you're typing on a computer, so on the keyboard, so it's much harder to feel the material. I mean, it's just plastic. So it's very different than painting or pottery or anything else. So I'd like to find a new medium for me to express myself, but I'm still working on that. But I think most, like, the next one would be painting. I'm I have some ideas I can't disclaim for now, but it's coming, I guess.
Perfect. Thanks for that. There's been like a lot, like a sort of a movement up in pace in terms of like how often artists are minting work these days. And obviously, there's a lot of demand for generative artists right now. How have you guys managed sort of the cadence of wanting to do a lot of work, wanting to tinker, wanting to have fun, and also keeping up with the demand from the market at large? And do you see that changing going forward? I know, Iskra, you mentioned a little bit about like maybe taking a break for a bit. How's that been, and what's been the experience mentally, I guess, more than physically, of like dealing with that?
Well, yeah, I really wanted to have a break, but I actually haven't taken it because my wish was start the year with some, a few months of just fully disconnecting of everything and maybe traveling a bit, and in order to come back with a fresh mind. But it didn't go this way. But at least I had the opportunity to be abroad and to work on some stuff which is not that directly connected to the space, because I really needed to get back with, let's say, stronger, because they've been like 2 years a bit exhausting for me, super exciting, but at some point I felt like I really needed to bring something valuable, and I was not ready for that, without taking this break. And regarding the market itself, I can declare publicly that sometimes I'm lost. I think there are too many things, and as artists, I think we would like to be, to understand everything and to be everywhere, but I just can't do that. And sometimes I just don't understand that, and I realize how I decreased substantially my releasings, because it's in the beginning I just released things because I just like the work, and I really wanted to share it with people, and I explored a lot minting in different platforms. And now it's maybe it's just my problem, maybe I'm not right doing that, but I really think a lot before releasing something. I don't know why. I just don't feel that comfortable releasing some of my stuff. As William said, I have my computer full of things, and that's why even if I'm taking this step back to understand better things, or to work more in a new body of work, I release a lot of whips on Twitter because I have a lot of things, and I really want to share that with the community, that I'm so grateful for many things. And I just want to create stories daily, of things that I just see in my works, or maybe I see here a person, see here a building, or I don't know, and I just want to share that, and yeah, maybe establish some dialogue with somebody that sees something on the piece, and that's completely enough for me, and I really enjoy that. But in terms of creating something to put on the market, I yeah, I really need to think a lot before doing that these days. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's for the best. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's super interesting about the whips because like you're talking with so many artists. Like I guess I'll out William a little bit, but I'm sure he'll talk about it. Is like this idea of like comfort around sharing that, like sharing at a certain point through your process. Some people are very comfortable doing that 20-30% of the way through, and some people are like, I don't want to put it out there until I'm ready to release it as like a collection or something very close to that. Like William, I think we've had a conversation about this before, and is that sort of still your point of view, or have you shifted and you're a little bit more lenient these days?
I'm definitely shifting toward releasing way less. Last year was super intense. I almost burned out, definitely. So it was super hard for me to maintain this pace of Web3 and releases and collaboration with having a family, especially a kid in young age. And it was like opposite direction for me. Something was going on the left, and the other one was going on the right, and I was stretched in between. So it was super hard. And the compromise that I am finding is to just release less and to work less on my stuff, but work longer on a particular release, on particular series. And I found that this way I can go even deeper into my understanding of my practice, because sometimes when you go too fast, it's really hard to have the big picture in mind. So especially for artists, I think it's really easy to get lost into this space. So I'm definitely an advocate of the slow pace. Um, I understand that some artists want and some collectors want more releases, but I think it's not human and not reasonable and not sustainable to do that on the long run. And I think this is actually a good thing. Like this is we're all in there for the long run, so why don't we take the time to make stuff? I think it's super important to realize that. So yeah, less, please, less, less stuff happening every day, less drama, and that's also why I try to be less on Twitter, way less, to just not get caught up into the whole tornado of Twitter and Elon Musk and shit. But yeah, I think it's important to step back and to be more grounded. Basically, basically being more grounded to your roots. You don't forget your roots.
I think I'm definitely going to think of Twitter as a tornado now. I might steal that. That's great.
I wasn't expecting you to bash Elon Musk there either, but that was quite good. William, I have a question for you. Obviously, I'm a big fan. Very much looking forward to Strands of Solitude on the 10th, and definitely plan to mint. I guess the question I want to ask you is there's some obviously very large differences between that and Anticyclone, but there's also some similarity. I'm just kind of wondering, is there some underlying DNA that they share, and how do you contrast them, and what are some of the similarities and what are some of the differences between the two algos?
Good question. It's definitely like the next step of Anticyclone, but in a different way, because it's not a long form on chain. although it is the same way of generating, it is generated in the browser, and everything is made in the browser, so there is no post processing or anything, and no image as well. It's basically like I would do this for art blocks, but I just curate it. Um, but basically, this is the same underlying algorithm in terms of rendering, but completely rewrote, because I just wanted, like, Anticyclone was made to be na- digital native, right? To be on screen. And I'm still working on the prints right now with Sofia Garcia and Artix Code on making the prints, but it wasn't made for that at the beginning. With Tonic, it was very much different. I was like, okay, I'm gonna make something very in between. So it has to be good on screen and on prints. And that's what the sweet spot was very hard to find. And I kept rewriting my shaders and everything until I got to the point where I was happy with, which was hard. But I'm quite happy how it turned out. And but basically, yeah, this is, I would say, like a natural evolution of Anticyclone, because with Anticyclone I had this huge challenge of hard blocks, of doing everything in the browser, real time, super performant but super beautiful. And with this one, I was confident that I could do that. So I just went deeper into the concept and the vision. So I didn't have any doubts basically about my capacity at doing this. I was just having doubts at being able to translate my vision correctly. So this is different approach. Um, so yeah, this is, I think, pretty much the difference. There is no real technical difference, but the challenges were different.
How do you kind of decide once you like want to stop continuing on a certain concept or idea? Like, is there a point where you realize or where you decide like, oh, I want to just completely pivot and try a completely different concept? Or like, I guess at what point are you satisfied like exploring a certain concept? I'm just curious from an artist standpoint.
Oh, that's
William's answer is going to be like every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
it's super hard. Oh my god, it's when to stop. Um, Basically, the deadline defines where to stop when there is one. Um, like the working with Tonic was super helpful. Having someone, outside of your work can really be of help. Like, okay, man, you can just stop now. It's okay. But as an artist, I could go on and on and on for a year. I have some algorithm that I'm working on for 2 years already that never showed up on never, like, anywhere. I never shared them. Only AB saw them basically, but it's really hard to stop. And basically, I think this is the beauty of generative art. This never stops. There is an infinity of possibility, and it's our role to explore them all. But when you mix it with the market and deadlines, then you have to find like a compromise. And this compromise is super hard to find when you're alone. But luckily, we have people to help, so it's mostly fine.
Iskra, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say the same. I mean, the deadline usually defines the end of the project. But yeah, for example, now that I have this time for myself, I'm really enjoying this. I think sometimes, in my case, at least, when I work on something, at some point you just see, a different way to continue with the algorithm. And that doesn't mean that you should go in that direction, but you just put aside this new direction and you continue working on that algorithm. And then you have this another one for the future, to work on that. And as William, I have a lot of systems like on my computer waiting or not, to be taken at some point and developed more. And now I'm enjoying a lot this free time just to explore things without any deadline in mind, or just a few, but just being free to really dive into the systems and see what happens. And I think at some point you just know that it's okay. I mean, it's something that really tells a story. It's consistent or not, and then you just understand that you have to work a bit more on the consistency of the system, or the final tuning aspects of releasing something and being proud of that. But I think aesthetically, or in terms of the story, you just know that. Maybe it's very similar with a traditional artist. And I want to say sorry for this term, because I maybe it's not so good for some of the artists, because we are calling them traditional. But I'm thinking about painting or sculpture. I'm sure they have the same process. They could infinitely work on something, but they just know when they have to stop. And I think here is the same.
Yeah, lovely. I think we'll do sorry. I think we'll do a few audience questions if anybody has any, or if you want to come up on stage and ask. Welcome to DM me or send a comment as well if you'd prefer to just ask a question that way. While we wait for a few of those to file in, Iskra, I've talked to you a bit before, and we can throw it to William after, about sort of when you first got into the idea of like minting your work on the blockchain. I think, like, if I remember correctly, you mentioned that you started over in the Tezos ecosystem, and that was sort of your intro. And now you're sort of expanding over a little bit into Ethereum. And, can you talk a little bit about what that was like at the beginning, and what it's like for you today?
Yes. So I first minted. No, well, I first minted in OpenSea, because that was the first platform that I learned of, and I just put there a collection of works, and that was my first experimentation. And then I think it was 1 week later or something, because the pace was so condensed in time. Actually, it was Marcelo who told me there is this new thing, Hiketnum, and I think I needed 4 or 5 days to learn how to mint there, because it was a beautiful but messy place. And yeah, I just started experimenting there, and I'm very grateful for that time, because it was the first connection with this community that we know now. For me, it's unprecedented, the quality of this community, and that was my first approach to that. And I think Hiketnung had something very particular, and it was that we were a very small group of people, and William was also there, and it was special because we didn't have any kind of pressure of anything, because nobody was looking at us. I mean, and it was very, very interesting, that because we could experiment with pricing, we could experiment with pieces, and I just really felt really free there. And I think that's why I got more connected to Tezos, because yeah, I mean, Hypno was there. And I was also, yeah, it's not that I was attached to Tezos, but I was just there. And then FX Cash came, which was the next level of this community, expansion. And it was a game on Tezos. And I was just I felt really good, in this context. So yeah, mostly I started in Tezos, but now with the merch and with everything, I think we all are trying, to expand ourselves and being agnostic in terms of chains. Now I'm getting more introduced to Ethereum. I found really, really cool and interesting people there, and artists, and I know I need to walk a bit more in that direction, because I was more consolidated in Tezos, but I'm definitely willing to really be completely agnostic, and just go where the art is, where interesting people are, and just make sure that I can mix with them and grow. So yeah, that was my story regarding the chains.
Go ahead, William.
Yeah, for me, Tezos, like this was so chaotic. My God, like the ink and ink experience was wow. I was lucky to have a friend who introduced me to this whole thing. Matt Delaurier was like, "Oh man, you should put your stuff on there," and I was like, "What the fuck do you mean?" And said, "Yeah, create a wallet and mint it." And I was like, "What?" And he took my hand and he said, "Okay, click here, put your stuff here, and you'll be fine." I'm so glad he did that because I discovered a whole new world, a whole community where we were in between us, like the creative coders, the generative artists. We really took over Ink and Nunk for some reason. Mostly, I think, thanks to Quasimodo and Matt, actually. And this is the first time I experienced a community effect that pushes you forward. And I'm so grateful for Tezos community for that. Then that's why I wanted to release my first long form on Tezos as well, to pay tribute to Tezos and to just say, I'm going from that point. I'm coming from that point. And then I experienced with art blocks and Ethereum, and now I'm trying basically to expand generative art and let people know about this practice. And just we don't have to be in our own bubble. I just want to have everyone in the world to see that, and I think it's really important for like an art movement to be seen. So I try to push forward this, and that's also why I'm working with Tonic. But yeah, I think being not a maxi thing, if this is the right term, is important. I think because everything there is some good and some bad in everything. Be we don't have to stick to only one thing. And something I learned some stuff only in Tezos and other stuff only in Ethereum. And if I was like, okay, I'm gonna just put stuff on Tezos, I would never have heard of what was going on Ethereum. And there's some pretty much amazing stuff going on there. So yeah, I'm definitely up for expansion of bubbles.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah, quick shout out to Marcelo and Zach and some other artists in the chat. Great to see you guys here today, and thanks for coming on and tuning in. We did have one speaker on stage, Grace B. Welcome, and please go ahead with your question.
Hi, thanks. It's actually not a question, but is that okay? It's a comment.
Sure, go ahead, by all means.
So I wanted to say my bit about this ongoing discussion regarding in real life collectors and digital collectors, specifically blockchain. And from my point of view, it's our job to ease all access to digital art, especially blockchain art, starting with easing the wallet and all this security nonsense that we have at the time. I think it's also very important to put ourselves in the shoes of seasoned collectors and realize that for most of us collecting now digital art, we've been in blockchain for 4 or 5 years, maybe 7 years before we ever started collecting art. And I doubt that we would have started this had it been, our first year in blockchain. So I would work on reducing all barriers, and also personally, to me, art is art, and that's as defined by the beholder. So I'm no one to tell someone else that that piece of art is valuable or not. I think our job is just making it accessible and having it listed at as many platforms as possible, so that people may choose what works for them, which may not be what works for us. The same runs for Ethereum and Tezos and such. I'm blockchain agnostic, but at the same time, I want to state that this idea that let's bring folks that have been in Tezos to Ethereum because, you know, there's more money here and whatever. I actually do not agree with that at all. Every blockchain serves its purpose, and we should be collaborating across. And then I think I have another point. That's, you know, let's figure out how we collectively bring art collectors and regular folks, not just art collectors, to the digital art realm. And it's sort of we have to put it at arm's length. So and Tonic is starting to do that, and others, not just Tonic. The thing is, we're starting to do it with, you know, very high valued pieces. And I suggest that we try to do it also with more accessible pieces, because every time everyone, you included, starts something new, we try to start it taking less risk. And I think you cannot relate to that. I bet no one here started buying Bitcoin when it was $50,000. We all started earlier. And had it been that situation, we would have had more doubts. So the more we lower the barriers, the better. And that is all. Thanks for listening, and sorry for the long talk.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate your perspective. Thanks so much for that. I think if there's no other questions, we'll pretty much wrap up. Just wanted to close the loop really quickly with the artists. William's drop on Tonic is on Friday, I believe 1 p.m. Eastern. Is that correct, William?
It is correct. If my jet lag is not Mr.
Yeah.
But I think it's 1 p.m. Yeah, 1 p.m. New York time, at whatever time zone it is. But yeah, 1 p.m.
Yeah, perfect. We'll include some details on that following up with this ending. And then Iskra, the show in Sotheby's, I think just launched yesterday and is open for a week. Does that close up next Wednesday? Next Tuesday?
Next 14. I had some problems with the dates on Twitter, so now I think I know. It's from the 7th, I mean from yesterday until the 14th, I think. And yes, but it's on for bidding, and yeah, we'll see.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Really enjoyed the spaces today. You know, Iskra and William are definitely two of my favorite artists. I know many of the people that are listening in. So thank you guys so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Really looking forward to the upcoming collections that are live now and ones in the future. And thanks as always to everyone that joined in today. And we look forward to next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
everybody. Appreciate
Thanks a
our
lot.
guests
Thanks
joining
a lot,
us.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Bye.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
See you.